Hi guys, so let's try this. This is my first recording of a screencast, so hopefully it will all go okay and record okay, and I can email you the video or wherever I save it. Okay, so sorry about this morning. Let's see if we can go through just what I was talking about. I've emailed you with the information, but just in case kind of what I've written doesn't make sense to you, I'll go over it again via here. First note, if you did not get access to OneNote, all of it is in the emails that I've sent you. If you do have access to OneNote, have a look for this tab Folio in your section. If you don't have it in your section, head back to my content library and look at it via my content library. Now, if that's the case, you will not be able to write on these 3 pages that are the tasks. So you will have to use the tables or the pages that I sent to you via the email and put all the information on those, save the table over to Word, create a Word document, or even if you can't see the Folio tab but you still can access your OneNote, create a new page in OneNote somewhere for you to complete the tasks on. So basically the tasks are looking at previous exemplars, which is task 1. Task 2 is coming up with your own idea, and task 3 is coming up with a mood board. And as I explained in the email, the mood board is like an ordered mood board now. So I call it a sample board as opposed to a mood board, but it really is just a mood board, but there's an order to it. So you're putting your inspiration ones at the beginning and then your conclusion inspiration images at the end. Okay, so going through what I was trying to talk to you this morning about, I'm trying to do it quite quick because I think there's only a 15-minute time limit to these videos that I've got. So I'll see if I can zoom through in those 15, and I've already used up 2 minutes blabbering away. Okay, so the title of this assessment is called Produce a Systematic Body of Work that Shows Understanding of Art Making Conventions and Ideas Within Photography. And I'm just going to move over to the assessment brief just so that I can see it a little bit bigger. Now, this assessment brief has tasks in it. Don't do those tasks. I've kind of rewritten them due to this need for you to be working by yourself as these 3 tasks here. So don't panic about task 1, task 2, etc. I've put them inside these 3 to get you going. So I think these are 3 easier ones to follow due to having the tables involved. Over here, it's a little bit, just a bullet point to-dos, etc. So you do not need to do these tasks as well as those tasks. Okay, so these 3 pages are these tasks. Okay, so the most important 3 words or 2 different ideas in this title is the words body of work, which refers to a collection of images. Now, the current assessment that you are doing is single one-off images. They didn't need to link together. They didn't need to be the same objects. And so that's classified as a collection of work. What we need is a systematic collection of work. So if you think about an art gallery, and if you walk into an art gallery and they have the option of you turning left and seeing the images on the left-hand side of the gallery, or you could turn right and see the images on the right-hand side of the gallery, and it did not matter in the slightest which way you turned. The artist didn't matter if you looked at the images to the left or to the right. Now, that would be an unordered body of work. There's no rhyme and reason to it. It's just a collection. It might have a theme to the collection. So all of the images might be the decay of family circles in an urban environment. So there might be a theme to the collection, but there wasn't any order to the collection. What we have to do is an ordered body of work, and that's the word systematic, that there is a system from the very first image to the very last image. There is a reason why those images are in that order. So, for example, in the gallery, it might be that the gallery is created in a maze that you could only turn to the left-hand side. You have to see image number 1 before you could move on to see image number 2, before you could move on to see image number 3. And the artist would have probably started with quite simple images at the beginning of the maze and ended with the major conclusion images right at the very end, so that as you left the gallery, you were in awe of what the artist was trying to get you to think about. So if we were talking about, and I think I've written in the email about pollution, and you might have a gallery that is a gallery display that's themed on pollution. So as you walk into the gallery, you turn left because that's the only way you can go. And you start seeing images of nice nature, and you're seeing fish in their own environment, and you're seeing, nice trees and greenery and nature in its beauty. Then as you turn a corner, you start seeing some rubbish being introduced, like there's rubbish floating in the water, or there is some graffiti on a trunk of a tree. You're just starting to get just a little bit of rubbish being introduced, and the viewer then will start to kind of go, oh, that's not really nice. That's we've just gone through this beautiful nature display on these beautiful images of nature. This rubbish is kind of starting to come in. Then they turn a corner in the gallery maze, and then they come across images of fish being neglected in stagnant water, or animals being turtles eating rubbish out of the sea. And the idea is starting to become a little bit more grunty. It's starting to become a little bit more, people are feeling a little bit, it's not nice. They're feeling more horror about how this pollution is affecting the environment. Now, if you had started with those images, if you had the very first image you had was an image of a turtle having a beer can plastic, those little rings of stuff around cans. If the very first image was with a turtle with one of these around its neck, it would be too much too soon. So what the order does is it allows the viewer to kind of get sucked into the idea. So introduction shots are a little bit more simplistic, they're a little bit more normal. And then as the development goes on, as the viewer turns the corner and gets another group of work, you've introduced something else for them to think about. For us, we need 4 corners, basically, 4 developments. So what we do is we display this on a panel. Don't panic about the size of the panel, etc., because printing is just printing. I'll print it, we'll be printing at school, so the printing will be a perfect size. What you need to do is create a body of work of 30 images that have 4 sections in them. So, for example, in the gallery, as I was saying, it would be 4 corners, or turning a corner into 4 different sections. So you have an introduction section where your images should be a little bit more simplistic. They should be a little bit more normal. Nothing major is happening. So if you're taking the idea of the pollution and the fish, it would be just images of fish. It still would be beautiful images. You'll be using your aperture and your shutter speed to get some interesting shots, but it wouldn't be anything major to do with pollution. Then down on the bottom of the first panel, or the first corner you've turned, you might then be introducing rubbish and having a little bit of interaction between the nature and the rubbish. And then the next corner you turn, which is now the top of the second panel, so we're working kind of halves, that might be where you are really influencing the nature, having it destroyed completely. And then the conclusion shot might be, and it depends on how do you want the pollution to go away, or do you want the pollution to stay, depending on what idea you're trying to get across with your images. You might end up with, and the example I showed you in your email was that the fish or the nature is trying to carry on with this destruction around them. So the fish swimming inside the plastic bottle that is inside the water that is the natural environment. So your task for, at the moment, no picture taking, is going to be trying to come up with an idea that has those possibility of those 4 layers involved. That there is an introduction to your idea, that you can add something to it, that you can add something to it, and then you can add something to get your conclusion. So your idea has to have layers involved in it. The amount of complexity of those layers will be where the merit and the excellence comes from, and also the how you take the image, the actual skills that you have that will also be linked to merit and excellences as well. So the example I had in your email was flowers. It's flowers is lovely, and images of flowers are beautiful, absolutely stunning. You know, I can imagine some really nice close-ups, small the fields of, you know, just the petals of the flowers being in focus and then everything else out of focus. That's fantastic for a one-off image. It's really too thin to have a body of work of 30 images around a flower. But flowers could be one of the layers of a bigger idea. So you could then look at, I'm going to use pollution again because we've already been talking about it. You could look at, instead of fish in pollution, you could look at flowers in pollution, or greenery in pollution. So that beautiful image of the flower with a small depth of field could be a start of your introduction. And then you could look at having black paint being dripped over the flower to kind of represent tar, or what do you call it, smog, you know, air environment, pollution in the air. Can't remember the terminology for it, but you could be looking at this flower dying because of this pollution coming in. So you could then look at having dead petals, and then petals falling off the flowers, ending up in this black paint. You could even introduce people into it. So yeah, a thin idea could be part of a thicker idea. So I've called it having a chunky or a fat idea, or as Shrek kind of mentioned in the movie, that he's an onion because he has so many layers. Well, that's what you're wanting for this part of the assessment, is to come up with an idea that has layers to it, that you can add stuff to the idea and play around with it. Now, in what is a folio board, I have examples of folio boards and how to read them, but don't panic about the layouts and things like that at the moment, because that's what we will do when we come back. The thing I want you to have a look at on this page is there is actually 3 different kind of developments you can do. Now, I'm very wary of the time. We're at 13 minutes at the moment, so I need to quicken this up. There are 3 different developments. You could do a narrative development where each part of the board is a different chapter in a story. The pollution ideas that I've been talking about are a themed, and this is the most common one that people do. Themed on horse riding, themed on, so normally if you have a hobby, this is the assessment or the development that you could do with your hobby quite easily. And then lastly, a pictorial. So pictorial means just finding an object, or a found object, or an object that you have, and looking at its shape, form, shadows, highlights, etc. You could do any of these developments. So what I'd like you to do, the 3 tasks, is the first one is folio board analysis. You're going to look at NZQA. You're going to choose a board that has already been marked by NZQA. It will tell you whether it's achieved merit and excellence. I'd like you to complete the table about that board, i.e. what it was about, how did that student come up with the different layers, the different developments. Then have a think about your own ideas. So in this board, in this page here, my possible folio board is going to talk about what you might like to do. And then finally, my folio sample board. And this is what I call the mood board of your assessment. But this is just going to be an ordered mood board. So, or you could do 4 different mood boards. So a mood board for your introduction shots, a mood board for your first development, a mood board for your second development, and a mood board for your last one. So they're the 3 that you need to do. Any questions, email me, and we'll meet next week to go over some Q&As as well. Hopefully that worked with everybody. Good luck.